You're listening to Radio Agila International. You can also find us on YouTube, Radio Agila International. I am Ace Ramirez, and this is Crime Has No Residence. On May 24th, just before the 11 p.m. closing time, two armed robbers walked into a Wendy's fast food restaurant in Queens, New York. They forced 7 workers into a walk-in refrigerator, bound them, and gagged them. Worse, they shot each one in the head. 5 of the employees died, and 2 were found in critical condition. In another fast food restaurant in Illinois, the restaurant manager was found strangled on the floor in a pool of blood next to an empty safe. Apparently, the manager was scheduled to open the restaurant at 4 a.m. to prepare the daily bank deposit. We'll talk about robbery. What is robbery? What is burglary? The formal definition of robbery is the taking or attempt to take anything of value from the care, custody, or control of a persons by force or threat of force or violence, and or by putting the victim in fear. In short, robbery is theft from a person by use of force or fear. So this crime. Elements of crime are specific intent, theft from a person by use of force or fear. The level of force or fear does not have to be great to meet the statutory requirement. So it has to have specific intent, and there's theft from a person by force or by fear. Some factoids. Where do robberies occur? Robberies can occur almost anywhere at any time, but tend to occur more often in anticipated settings and at expected times. According to our source, crimedoctor.com, at an average, robbery occurs every minute, burglary every 15 seconds, murder every 31 minutes, assault every 37 seconds, and rape every 6 minutes. Robberies can occur in private or in public places. So don't think that if you're in a public place, you're free from being a victim of robbery. Robbers and their victim can be total strangers, can be friends, can be relatives. So all along, some of us may be thinking, we thought only strangers, only total strangers will do that. The case. In both the cases that we cited earlier, the fast food robbery homicides, the suspects were found to have been former employees. More robberies involve one robber and one victim. From start to finish, only lasts less than a minute. Most commercial robbery victims are not injured as long as they do not resist. So is it advisable for us to show some form of resistance? So some of you may probably think, hey, I'm 6'2", I weigh 250 pounds, I work out a lot, I can take this guy out, I'm bigger than him, I can just sit on him and it's done. But no, that is really not advisable. If you resist, there is the higher probability of you getting injured. What are the robbery prevention secrets? How do we prevent robbery? Well, the secret to robbery prevention is, number 1, for commercial establishments, limit available cash. So there's a saying that goes out of sight, out of mind. and you're far from trouble. The robbers can see in advance that your location is a poor target because of limited amounts of available cash and because the chances of getting caught are increased. Number two, pull all of the security measures out in the open so the potential robbers, even when disguised as former employees, can discover them. Most businesses tend to hide their security, fearing that cover it and overcome the measure. No, let them see it. If you must put up a sign that there is a surveillance camera or that the safe is protected by some sort of time lock, do so. Intimidation is your basic prevention. It's a simple math. Good targets get robbed more frequently than poor targets. Criminals will still look you over, but if you're doing it right, the robbers will go down the street to find an easier target and a more lucrative target. Some commercial establishments would put away large bills right away, or would cut off the cashier if their sales have reached a certain amount. So let's say they set $1,000. If the cashier already has $1,000 in their cash register, the manager would just cut the cashier off so that they can't put away the bills or the cash. So from a commercial perspective, let's move on to residential. It's called home invasion, one of the more frightening and potential dangerous crimes that can occur to a family. Invasion robbery. A home invasion is when robbers force their way into an occupied home, apartment, or maybe a hotel room to commit a robbery or other crimes. It is particularly frightening because it violates our private space and the one place that we think of as our sanctuary. Let's differentiate the profile of burglars and home invasion robbers. Burglars. Okay. Residential burglars work mostly during the day and when a residence is more likely to be unoccupied. Most burglars work alone and tend to probe a neighborhood looking for the right residence and the right opportunity. So they scout. The next time you see a cute guy or a cute girl walking around your neighborhood or looking into your window, you have to think again. They may or not be after you, but maybe after that 60-inch TV that is hanging on your wall. So also, burglars will avoid a confrontation and will usually flee when approached. So if suspicious, ask them. Ask a question. Just be forward with them. Most burglaries do not result in violence unless the criminal is cornered to escape. How about the home invasion robbers? In contrast, work more often at night. The home invasion robbers work more often at night and on weekends when homes are more likely to be occupied. So burglars, homes are unoccupied. The home invasion robbers, when the homes are occupied. The home invader will sometimes target the resident as well as the dwelling, so the person plus the valuables or the home itself. I'm not trying to scare you, but the selection process may include a woman living alone, a wealthy senior citizen, or a known drug dealer. For example, well, the drug dealer has lots of cash, and that is the most common among these three examples. The woman living alone, they probably don't have anything to spend on, or they keep to themselves, and some robbers, some home invaders would probably think that they are helpless. and they cannot defend themselves. That's usually the notion. It is not unheard of for a robber to follow you home based on the value of the car you are driving or the jewelry you are wearing. So for our listeners who love to wear their bling bling, you may have to think twice before flashing your 20-carat diamond. This might have been in your home, like as a delivery person, an installer or a repair vendor, maybe a pizza delivery guy. Now this is really crazy. You better not be too friendly with the plumber or the cable guy next time they visit for a maintenance job. Let's admit it. Sometimes, because of our culture, we are a bit too trusting. Yeah, or everyone is an ate, everyone is an uncle. We trust too much. Home robbers rarely work alone and rely on an overwhelming physical confrontation to gain initial control and instill fear in you. The greatest violence usually occurs during the initial 60 seconds. The confrontation often come prepared with handcuffs, ropes, duct tapes, and firearms. Some in-home robbers appear to enjoy the intimidation, domination, and violence, and some even claim it's a sort of rush. In the movies, robbers are, or the robbers' characters are often portrayed like with big smiles and enjoying the fear that they instill in their owners or their victims. With this crime, here are some dangerous trends in robberies or burglaries. The traditional commercial targets for robbers, like convenience stores and fast food restaurants, have hardened themselves against criminal attack and have reduced available cash. Technology has allowed commercial establishments to install affordable video surveillance systems, silent alarms, and other anti-crime deterrent services. A residence, by comparison, is now a more attractive choice. So it has shifted. Maybe before, robbers or burglars would target commercial establishments, but now it's the residences that they are targeting. Home invaders know that they won't have to overcome alarm systems when the home is occupied, or they don't have to be worried about video cameras and silent alarms. Unlike robbing a retail store, home invaders expect privacy once inside your home. Deal with the police suddenly driving up or customers walking in. Once the offenders take control of a residence, they can force the occupants to open safes, locate hidden valuables, supply keys to the family car, and even PIN numbers to their ATM cards. Home invaders will try to increase their escape time by disabling the phones, and sometimes will leave their victims bound or incapacitated. It is common for robbers to load up the victim's car with valuables and drive away without anyone in the neighborhood taking notice. What's the MO or the method of operation? The most common point of attack is through the front door or garage. Sometimes the home invader will simply kick open the door and confront everyone inside. More common is when the home invaders knock on the door or they even ring the doorbell. The home invader hopes that the occupant will simply open the door without question in response to their knock. Unfortunately, many of us do that. Home invaders will sometimes use impersonation to get you to open the door. They have been known to pretend to be delivering a package, flowers, or lie about an accident like hitting your parked car, or maybe they will introduce themselves saying that they help your child who was in an accident at school. Once the door is open for them, the home invaders will use an explosive amount of force and threat to gain control of the home and produce fear in the victims. Once the occupants are under control, the robbers will begin to collect your valuables. Some home robbers have been known to spend hours ransacking a residence while the homeowners are bound nearby watching in terror. Some robbers have been known to eat meals, watch TV, or even take a nap. We'll probably seen videos of robbers or burglars doing this. A major fear is that the robbers might commit more violence like sexual assault or even murder. Some robbers have kidnapped and forced a victim to withdraw cash from the ATM machine or take them to their small business to rob it as well. What are the preventive steps that we can take? If you can delay a home invader at the point of entry, then you have a chance of deterring them or having time to call the police. Four-door, strong locks with reinforced strike plates and reinforced window devices will stop most forced entries. Some homeowners build safe rooms like that movie. What movie is that? With Jodie Foster, where people, the bad people came in and she took the kids in the attic. And they call it the safe room. Inside their home to allow them to retreat or escape the violence while giving them valuable time to call the police. So, lock up doors and windows. Lock them up. If you have to do a second check, a third check, a fourth check, even if your kids may call you OCD, well, it's better than being sorry. It's better safe than sorry. The weakest home security link is the home occupant who fails to lock doors or windows, or who will open the door without question at the sound of a knock or a simple doorbell. We will take a break, and when we come back, we will talk about family survival tips. I'm Ace Ramirez, and you are listening to Radio Agila International. You're listening to Radio Agila International. I'm Ace Ramirez, and this is Crime Has No Residence. Before we continue, shout out to our friends in Baguio City, Willie Abad and Eric Langit, as well as our friends in Bangkok, Thailand, Marlon and Elaine Galicia and family, and to our friends in Dubai, that's Tata Shakur and Robert Saison. Well, before the break, we talked about what's trending with robberies and burglaries and the method of operation. We learned that robbery happens anywhere, anytime, in public or in private, and can be as quick as a minute or as long as several hours. They can end up without physical injuries, and worse, in worst cases, they can be fatal. We'll continue our discussion with prevention and security tips and the plan of action here in Crime Has No Residence. So we remember these important security tips. Install solid core doors, heavy-duty locks, and window security devices. Lock all doors, windows, and garages at all times. Use 4 3-inch screws to secure heavy-duty lock strike plates in the door frame. Use the door peephole before opening the door. So don't just open the doors right away when somebody knocks or rings the doorbell. Use your porch light to help you to see clearly outside. Never rely on a chain latch as a barrier to partially open the door. Never open the door to strangers or solicitors. Call the police if the stranger acts suspicious. Alert your neighbors to suspicious solicitors. Hold a family meeting to discuss home security plans. Set the home perimeter alarm at night if you have one. Here are some effective family survival tips from Chris McGooey, president of McGooey Security Consulting. Imagine this scenario. After a long weekend at work, you are finally able to relax at home with your spouse and 2 teenage daughters. You're in your living room watching TV with your spouse. Your daughters are in their own rooms doing whatever teenagers do. Because both of you have worked hard for so many years, you are now able to live more comfortably in what you thought to be a safe community. At 9 p.m., you heard a knock on the door and your spouse gets up to answer the door. After the door is unlocked, you hear a sudden outburst as 2 strange young men burst through the door and into your living room. As the door crashes open, you see your spouse being punched and beaten to the floor. Before you have time to react, you are overcome by physical force and threats of harm to you and your family. The 2 men are brandishing guns and are shouting obscene threats and commands simultaneously as they push you onto the couch. One of the men quickly searches the house for other occupants, while the other stands guard over you. Your mind is racing. Is this my time? Is this our time? Will these attackers beat us or molest our daughters? The level of terror and anxiety is enormous and will cause victims most of the time to act irrationally. Some will freeze and become incapacitated from fright. Others will instinctively resist and try to fight back. Others will run away if possible. Psychologists have labeled this phenomenon as the fight or flight syndrome. The first 30 seconds are the most critical to your family survival. The question is, what do you do? How would you react? How will my family react independent of me? How will we react together? How you naturally react depends on many factors: your sex, your age, physical condition, culture, personality, how you process information, how you react under extreme pressure, special training, skills, and past experience in responding to aggressions. Most people don't know for sure how they will respond to a personal crisis until it occurs. Many are surprised afterwards by their behavior as having been heroic, calm, cowardly, or even stupid. The response possibilities are endless, but most fall into 3 general response possibilities. You can resist the assault, comply with all the commands, or you can try to stay calm, wait, and resist, comply, or flee as the scenario evolves. One thing is clear: there's no one single correct response to a life-threatening home invasion scenario. So if you're looking for a manual which will tell you what to do, there is none. The choice is personal, based on your own assessment of your physical and mental capabilities and your belief as to the level of imminent danger. Sometimes fighting and screaming works, especially if there are neighbors who will intervene or call the police. It makes no sense to risk fighting if you are physically incapable of doing so effectively. Total compliance sometimes works. The invaders might leave you unharmed and just leave. However, compliance may increase the duration of the invasion and therefore increase the potential of molestation. You need to thoughtfully consider how you or your family members might act under the circumstances, and you should plan accordingly. So what's the plan? What's the action plan? Having a family and neighborhood plan is essential. So you gather your family members. You should develop a home security plan and talk about it with your family and neighbors. The chances of acting appropriately and getting help are greatly improved if you plan it. Prevention works best. Harden your home or apartment with strong doors and locks and 3-inch screws in the lock strike plate and door hinges. Use a wide-angle peephole and instruct everyone in your family not to open the door to strangers. Chain latches are ineffective as a barrier, so use your peephole to look outside before opening the door. We see this often when somebody knocks on the door or rings the doorbell. People would open the door right away and just keep the latch on, the chain latch. That is not advisable. Be suspicious of someone claiming to be making a delivery that you did not order, or use other tricks to get you to open the door. Sometimes people tend to listen to a flower delivery, or in most cases, especially in the Philippines, when they say there's a package for you, they'll be more than willing to open the door right away without any questions. Fortification of rear doors, sliding glass doors, and garage doors are also important. This gives you the necessary time to phone 911, sound audible alarms, or maybe arm yourself. Automatic phone dialers or fast dials. You should have automatic dial telephones that can call 911 or emergency numbers in speakerphone mode. It can be effective in getting police assistance. If a home invader breaks in, you may have just a split second to push the 911 direct dial button on your telephone. If you dial in speakerphone mode, the police dispatcher can listen in on what is going on in the room. Have an escape plan. Where would you go? If someone in the household can escape and call for help, the home invaders will have lost their advantage of having privacy and time. To some, running away from your family in crisis is distasteful, especially to men or women with children. However, the alternative might mean being handcuffed or tied up or otherwise incapacitated and left to watch in horror as your family is molested. If you have a plan for escaping, make sure you include where to run and what to say. Sometimes you know where to go, but you don't know what to say. You don't know what to tell the people that you went to. Sometimes a radical escape measure pays off in life and death circumstances, like diving through a plate glass window, jumping from a balcony, or climbing onto the roof. Although you might sustain minor injuries, you must weigh them against your chance of survival. Be realistic. If you're on the 10th floor and your only escape route is the balcony and you're expecting to land on the pavement, I would be having second thoughts of doing that. Home invaders will sometimes threaten harm to children or to get adults to comply with their demands. But at the same time, children are often overlooked as potential rescuers and sometimes are not as well guarded. If the opportunity presents itself, a trained child can dial 911, activate an alarm panic button, or escape to the neighbor's house to summon the police. If they're capable, they should do it. The kid should do it. Never stop thinking. Do not panic. Keeping a cool head is important, even in dire circumstances. Always be thinking and re-evaluating the situation as it evolves. But what doesn't always work? Maybe you've tried some of these. Maybe you've been in such situation. What doesn't work? Screaming and shouting is the easiest and most natural thing that almost everyone can do. Screaming can alert savvy neighbors to call the police, or the noise alone may scare off the home invaders. However, home invaders know this and will be prepared to make you stop screaming by force if necessary. One of the first threats you will hear is, if you scream, I'll slit your throat or I'll kill you. If you can't escape but are out in public, scream your head off. Scream things like call 911, not just help. Scream instructions, or tell them what's happening. That most of the time saves lives. Sometimes homeowners have lost their weapons to home invaders because they couldn't get to them in time to use them. Most chemical sprays are tucked away somewhere, and many handguns are kept unloaded or locked up to prevent children from getting their hands on them. During a home invasion, you cannot always count on your ability to get these weapons before being injured yourself. Ordinary household products can work in self-defense. Chemical fire extinguishers work great to disorient the robber. Fighting the intruder sometimes works, especially if you have some training and are physically fit. But for most, fighting doesn't work because the victim was pre-selected for their lack of fighting capability. In a life-threatening situation, there are no rules for fighting in self-defense. The idea is not to stand toe-to-toe and duke it out. All you need is one incapacitating blow to the nose, eyes, or throat. Again, to the nose, eyes, or throat, to allow time to get out of there and call for help. Take a self-defense class together with your family so all can learn the proper techniques and can practice the procedures. Faking illnesses doesn't always work, especially in the home. Most home invaders don't care about your welfare anyway. Faking illness might work in public or while being transported or while fighting off molesters, but don't count on it as your only choice. Decide in advance on what to do or say. Don't even try to pull a weapon on an armed perpetrator who has you covered with a handgun unless you feel it's your last chance. Don't even agree to be transported somewhere else, like to an ATM machine or other location, unless you feel it's a life or death situation. The second crime scene is almost always more violent than in your home. If you have a choice, never agree to be tied up, handcuffed, or be placed in the trunk. So by all means, do whatever you can to convince a perpetrator not to tie you up or not to put handcuffs on you. If you have to lie, do so. If you have to say something stupid to make them believe it, do so. Never agree to be tied up, handcuffed, or be placed in the trunk of a car because it takes away most of your self-defense options. Don't ever allow an intruder once they leave your home, or never follow an intruder once they leave your home. Leave that for the police. Don't fight over property loss. It can be replaced, but your life, it cannot. In conclusion, robbery and burglaries, most of the time, they may not be harmful, but in worst case scenarios, they can be fatal. You have to be prepared. You have to read up on tips on how to save yourself, on how to save your family, how to prepare, to plan. That will save your life and your loved ones' lives as well. Thanks to crimedoctor.com, Mr. Chris McGooey for my resource materials. And you're listening to Ego Radio International, or Radio Agila International. You can also find us on YouTube, Radio Agila International. This is Crime Has No Residence. For Radio Agila International, I am Ace Ramirez, and I am 1 with 25.